Hello friends, my name is the real Emile, and welcome back to some more Forza Motorsport laps. Today we're taking a look at some B-Class cars, and we are kicking things off with the 1968 Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale, 245 horsepower, 148 foot-pound torque, 1,543 pounds of weight. This B-Class car is 600 in PI, meaning it is both the highest B-Class car here today and the highest PI B-Class car in the game. Despite that, it has the least amount of power here today and the least amount of torque. However, unsurprisingly, it is also the lightest car here today. 1,543 pounds is really not a lot. That is less than most of the track toys in this game. Unsurprising, because the 33 Stradale is basically a race car. Admittedly, quite an old race car. Now, we had the Daytona round last time, and that sort of exhibited its old car behaviour. This one, it looks like it does. It has sort of softy looking suspension, but it's actually not that bad. It is very, very quick. There is no doubt about this. This car was a leaderboard car as far back as I remember. Probably still is to this day. Really very, very quick car. However, unlike in some of the previous Forza games, handling-wise, it's just not quite there. It's got a little niggle that I just don't like about it. It's a little bit too soft. It understeers a little bit too much. It isn't quite the precision machine it once was, but it is still undoubtedly extremely quick. Next up we have the 1984 Ferrari 288 GTO, 395 horsepower, 366 foot-pound of torque, 2,557 pounds of weight. This is a B-Class car, 593 in PI. You may be able to hear, 288 GTO has a rather interesting lift off the throttle noise, and it will do that around the entirety of the track. It is very loud, it is very odd. I don't understand. I mean, obviously it's got turbos, so turbo noise, but yeah, it doesn't sound quite there, and it doesn't sound anything at all like the Ferrari F40 in my experience, which is basically what the 288 GTO is. It is basically what the F40 became an evolution of. That is essentially what this car is. Of course, meant to go Group B racing as well was the 288 GTO. As far as it is to drive, it is surprisingly good. I don't remember this car being this good in the previous games I've tried it in. It's never really been particularly amazing, but in this game, it's pretty close to what the Ferrari F40 is, really. The F40 is a really very, very good handling car, and this one is a really good handling car. It is down on power from the F40. It's obviously not as quick as the F40, but it's actually pretty darn good. I would recommend giving this a go if you want an F40, but it's maybe a bit too high of a PI for you. Try out the 288 GTO, you'll be surprised. Next up, we change gears completely. This is the 2011 Audi RS5 Coupe, 442 horsepower, 317 foot-pound torque, 3,830 pounds of weight. This is the first all-wheel drive car we've had here today. B568 is the PI on this one, so quite a ways down on the Ferrari and Alfa Romeo. Yeah, unlike the Ferrari and the Alfa, this is not a sort of race car for the road. This is a big sort of four-wheel drive luxury coupe based off the RS4 of the time. Not a huge fan of the RS5, gotta be honest. I've much preferred the RS4. I prefer my sort of super saloons to my super coupes. If I want a super coupe, I'm gonna buy something that was meant to be a coupe all along. I'll buy an F-Type or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the RS5 isn't a terrible car by any stretch of the imagination. As far as it goes to drive, it is good. A little bit on the understeer side, of course, you'd expect that. It is all-wheel drive. It's an all-wheel drive Audi. They do sort of handle quite similar. Some of them get away with it. Sort of some of the estate cars I actually find handle a bit better than these. But as a general rule of thumb, the four-wheel drive Audi and Mercedes cars usually do have a tendency to understeer, just because they are quite heavy vehicles. Next up, we have the 2009 Holden HSV W427, 503 horsepower, 472 foot-pound torque, 4,122 pounds of weight. It is a B-Class car again, obviously. B542. I'm getting too used to getting in the reach peak voice there. I haven't done that in a while, so I don't know why I'm doing that. Anyways, the Holden HSV W427, one of the returning cars from Forza Motorsport 4. Can't say I really miss this car, but it is quite a crazy contraption, I will admit that. It is basically a 7-litre Corvette Z06 motor, I believe, powering this. Makes a fantastic V8 burble. Pretty cool car. Actually, all things considered, you know, maybe it's not quite as cool as some of the later mental HSVs and, you know, the Utes and so on, but, you know, it is still a pretty cool car. Not a particularly good-looking car, though. I don't think that one can be disputed. As far as the HSV drives, it's fine. It's got very long gear ratios. I'm assuming it probably uses the Corvette gearbox. Yeah. Maybe not quite as good as the Charger we had out last time. It is quicker than the Charger. I believe it weighs slightly less and it has a bit more power. But I think handling-wise, the Charger, just a bit of a better car. It's on a slightly newer chassis. Well, it isn't actually, I believe. Yeah, it won't be on a newer chassis, but it's sort of more refined because it's a bit newer, so... Yeah, the Charger is a little bit better. Next up, 2014 Rolls-Royce Wraith, 624 horsepower, 590 foot-pound torque, 5,380 pounds of weight. Unsurprisingly, this is the most powerful car here today, the most torquey car here today, and the heaviest. It is a B529 class vehicle. The Rolls-Royce Wraith, this big old bruiser. Again, as I've said before, you know, I try and get as many sort of different cars in these as possible. I tried to pick some sort of oddballs, and the Rolls-Royce Wraith is about as oddball as you can get. Still to this day, I believe this is the only game Rolls-Royce come into, which is a bit odd when you consider how much you can customise the cars, and I don't think Rolls-Royce would be particularly happy with that. I would kind of like to see the new Phantom, though. That'd be interesting. But for now, we've only got the Wraith and the Dawn. Yeah, the Wraith, big, heavy vehicle. As far as it goes to drive, it is not as bad as you'd think. It's nowhere near as bad as it was back in Forza Motorsport 5. When this thing first came out, this was a boat. It was, you know, the suspension was awful. All it wanted to do was tail slide. It wasn't even that quick. You know, through the games, it sort of got gradually better handling. I still don't think it's anywhere near as good as, say, the RS5 Coupe, but it's not bad. It's not as bad as you'd think, so maybe give it a try if you want to drive something a little bit ridiculous. Next up, we have the 2015 Ford Mustang GT, 421 horsepower, 391 foot-pound of torque, 3,618 pounds of weight. This is a B517 in PI. Yeah. The Ford Mustang GT, I sort of did want to get another muscle car in here. I guess you could class the Holden as a muscle car. But, you know, I wanted to stick a Mustang in because why not? And the 2015 Mustang, pretty cool car. First Mustang, of course, to come to the United Kingdom and Europe. You do see quite a few of these around, actually, and they do make a rather fantastic noise. They do look rather good as well. Perhaps look better than the new facelift. I'm not a huge fan of the facelift. I'm not as anti it as some people are, but yeah, I think they did a pretty good job on the redesigned Ford Mustang. As far as it goes to drive, it is decent, certainly. The one complaint I have, and I did a review on this car in Forza Motorsport 5 where I go into a little bit more detail on this, it still has that sort of old feeling. It still kind of feels like it's cobbled together from bits from the 80s and the 90s. You know, the suspension isn't quite as stiff as you'd expect. It isn't quite as responsive as you'd expect. It feels a little bit heavy. It's a bit of a mismatch. It's not a bad car by any stretch of your imagination, but it does feel old. However, one car that does not feel old is the 1992 Honda NSX-R, 276 horsepower, 217 foot-pound of torque, 2,712 pounds of weight. This is a B508 in PI, one of the lowest B-class cars we have here today. However, do not mistake that for weakness. Do not write that off, because the NSX is a fantastic car. I'll get into that in a little bit later, but for right now, Honda NSX car I've always liked. One of my more favourite of the sort of sports cars, just because it was very true to what it was. It always had about 276 horsepower, mid-engined rear drive, naturally aspirated, no gimmicks or anything like that, and that's what I've sort of always liked about the NSX. I even like the new NSX, and I guess you could say that's a bit more gimmicky, but yeah. The first gen, probably my least favourite of the NSXs, but I appreciate a lot of people do like this generation. As far as it goes to drive, it is spot on. It is super lovely. NSXs have always just driven so much better than all of the other Japanese sports cars, at least here in Forza, and that is still true here today. This is a handling machine. You can chuck it into corners stupidly quick. It kind of reminds me of that sort of 914 we had. It hasn't got too much power, but man, it handles nicely. It is such a nice car to drive. If you haven't driven an NSX, I recommend you go out and do so. And finally here today, we have the lowest Class B class car in the game. This is the 2008 Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 10 GSR, 305 horsepower, 315 foot-pound torque, 3,395 pounds of weight. B502, or B501, sorry, is the PI on the Evo 10. The last of the Evos, of course, because they're not making any more of these, or if they are, they're changing them to electric SUVs, because Mitsubishi, why do you even still exist? Anyways, of course, back when this car came out, quite the revolution. People really liked this. It was sort of better than the Impreza of the day. This is sort of when they turned into the hatchback Impreza. I didn't like that. Most reviewers didn't like the hatchback Impreza either. Yeah, this sort of ran circles around it, supposedly, and I mean, even with like the FQ400 and 440 models, they were going after stuff like the Nissan GTR, which is quite impressive. As far as the Evo 10 goes to drive, it is okay. It drives very much similar to an Impreza, or an Evo. They have mild understeer. It's a sort of enough understeer for you to really notice, not enough to completely ruin the car. It's not bad. I mean, you know, Evos, Imprezas, they're all good. Pretty much every Evo and Impreza kind of drives similar. They just have like slightly better stats here and there, but yeah, the Evo 10 isn't bad. On to the times then, and in third place, the fastest car today, unsurprisingly, Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale going into third with a 119.700. Just below that, in fourth, the Ferrari 288 GTO sets a rather impressive time, a 120.129. In fifth, we have the Audi RS5 Coupe with a 122.409. Sort of as you'd expect, you know, the highest 3B class cars going into the top. Then something you wouldn't expect. In sixth place, the NSX-R, the second lowest PI car we have here today, a 123.115. Beats out the SVT Cobra R, the Maserati Gran Turismo. Incredibly quick car, the NSX. Go and try it out. You will love it, I assure you. Moving down the board a bit, and in ninth we have the Holden HSV W427 with 123.406, pretty decent time, considering it is faster than a Charger. Ford Mustang GT goes into 10th place with 123.871, interestingly quite down on the Cobra R. Royce Wraith goes into 11th with a 123.934, really not a bad time, and actually beats a 1 Series M Coupe. The only car to not beat a C-Class car here today was the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 10, which goes into 13th with a 124.975, getting beaten out by the 1 Series M Coupe, and it is slightly quicker than the Charger SRT8 that we had out last time. So pretty interesting results, especially from the NSX. Like I said, I can't endorse that car enough. Go and drive one, you'll love it. Anyways, friends, thank you all very much for watching this episode of the Forza Top Gear Laps, and next time we're going to be taking a look at some A-Class cars, so join us for that. Until then, farewell.